Just so you know where I'm at, what I'm doing, I'm in the Arbuckle Mountains of Oklahoma, scouting for locations. This is a region a lot of people don't know about. So down in that little valley that I just showed you is a road, but you keep going on that road and there's a river. And of course, with nice canyons like these, the rivers can become raging rivers in the summer, interesting places. But a lot of stuff you can do here off season. Hey everybody, this is Jon Croft with Culture Warfare with Jon Croft. I'm Jon Croft. As you can see, this is a special recording we're doing out of our makeshift studio from before. We're getting a bigger studio, a better studio, but right now we're in between places, and we happen to be in southern Oklahoma, where just recently there was a nice snowstorm, which we enjoyed down in San Antonio. As we went down to San Antonio while that was happening. And so we're trying to do another episode here quickly. This will be a short episode. We're doing everything through cellular right now. And we have Rebecca with us. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, John. It looks awesome behind you.
Thank you. You look great too. You're in a little public library, right? Where they have some podcasting resources.
They have all kinds of cool podcasting equipment here.
Yeah, good. So we're going to be just talking about a few things quickly. We've missed a lot of news. It's been a long time. It's been, what, 2 months? So we've probably missed about 4 episodes of Culture Warfare doing this. And this was a very important thing. It's not just me and Rebecca after all. It's 3 other kids besides us, 2 overgrown children here. But we are having fun on the mountain here at Arbuckle Mountains, Oklahoma. We've looked at quite a few pieces of property. Have you enjoyed it so far, Rebecca?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful place to be, and it's dry. Yeah. It's a little bit desert-like, and the snow is amazing. It was my first snow, so that was really cool.
Yeah, and you didn't just get snow, you got snow and ice.
Yeah.
So it's a good introduction. Because a lot of people, like me, I grew up, I just got the nice snow, powdery snow. I didn't get the ice as much, but now you get both. You get a nice introduction to what it can be like up in the Midwest when you get a snowstorm. You know, Florida, you can lose power, you can get flooding with hurricanes. Here, it's not so much flooding as it is power outages and extreme cold, right? But if you have heat, you're fine with the extreme cold. But then if you get power outage, you could be in trouble. So that's kind of what we were concerned about. We went down to San Antonio just in case, and we enjoyed the river walk, and there was a Lego place there for our kids. But here we are, back at Cultural Warfare, having fun, and we're looking to buy a studio here, or a commercial property that can be used as a studio, as well as for our bookstore, Vine Branches Bookshop.com. You can check that out. What we do is carry the best Western civilizational classics in the best format possible, at least that we can find. And so you go to vineandbranchesbookshop.com, and that's where we're at, selling our Western civilizational wares.
Yeah, it's basically classic works of literature, including the Bible, also children's literature and journals, so you can take notes as you search through history.
Yep, it's a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun curating these works. We get some of our favorite authors like George MacDonald, C.S. Lewis, stuff like this. The Brothers Karamazov, great stuff like that. Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, which, as we know, Christopher Nolan is making his version of the Odyssey very soon, and we'll be able to talk about that. I already got the best version, I think, of the Iliad and Odyssey. Rebecca got it to me for Christmas, right, Rebecca?
Yeah, that's right, from our bookshop.
Really nice. I wish I could show you here.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous edition. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. So we're selling that one as well. But today we've got to talk about our little video that we made about our move. It's very brief, just you can watch it right here. So enjoy, let me know what you think. Hey everybody, this is Jon Croft from Culture Warfare. Just so you know where I'm at, what I'm doing, I'm in the Arbuckle Mountains of Oklahoma, scouting for locations. So this is a region a lot of people don't know about. It kind of looks like Southern California, but it's beautiful. It's kind of a hidden place. See that? So down in that little valley that I just showed you is a road, but you keep going on that road and there's a river. And of course, with nice canyons like these, the rivers can become raging rivers in the summer, interesting places, and places to have cabins and to have fun things in the summer. This is a tourist region in the summer. In the winter, it goes dead. But a lot of stuff you can do here off season. And that's why we're here off season. So we're enjoying it here. We've been on the mountain up here. It's not a very big mountain, but I'm taking it right now. I walk up it for exercise. It's been great here, not too cold this winter, but still refreshing. And we've been looking at real estate all around the state and trying to find the right studio location to continue our great show in a studio, hopefully, and also to expand our media business operations. This is a really great region in the country for conservative cities. The cities around here, including Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Springfield, Kansas City, Dallas, all a conservative media hub down here. A lot of people don't know that, don't think of that. This makes it easy for us to visit studios, to visit filmmakers for events. Maybe they do red carpets or whatever they're doing down here. Makes it easy for us to capture interviews in person. No longer through Zoom or something cheesy like that. We want to do in-person interviews. We want to do in-person documentaries over at Media Moses. Obviously, us at Culture Warfare, we're going to be working on building internet community more and more. And hopefully we'll take the show live soon, once we have a studio again. And we'll just start building community more and talking about the news. A lot of that news, though, is going to start going to Media Moses. And we want that to be our professional channel with a studio talking about conservative and Christian entertainment news, because we really actually care about this stuff. I don't know if you've also noticed, but we've also started a online bookstore called Vine Branches Bookshop. If you head over there, you'll see the kind of stuff we care about. Western civilizational source material, right? The classics. As you know, Christopher Nolan shooting his epic, The Odyssey, right? Well, he's already shot it. He's come out with his trailer. It's disappointed many people. But nevertheless, right? We want to be talking about these kinds of works, even if it's coming from Hollywood at times. But mostly we want to get it coming from the people that we know and love and trust. And that's mostly not Hollywood. It's mostly the new Hollywood forming in places like this around the country. We want to be here to capture that. And if we have to be the only trade magazine and lifestyle magazine for conservative and Christian entertainment, we will be. So thank you guys. We love you. Gonna keep plugging away, and you can keep enjoying the beautiful visuals coming right up. Besides that subject, we have David and we have the Pendragon cycle. And we will also discuss a quick poll we want to give you. But first, David, right? So David's been out since Christmas time. We saw David finally, actually right after Christmas. We were too busy traveling and such, and taking care of our kids in a cabin on Christmas, which is not easy to do when you're away from home. But it was actually a lot of fun, wasn't it, honey?
It was, yeah, it was awesome. But yeah,
Well,
David is the animated feature film.
yeah, the
And
animated feature film by Angel Studios.
well, is it Sunlight Productions?
Yes,
And it,
you're correct. Angel did not produce it. A lot of
yeah,
people don't know this about Angel, but Angel is a distributor. They're not a producer. They don't produce their own movies. Which
yeah,
is funny. Whenever people have criticism for Angel, they criticize Angel's content and they don't realize that Angel has nothing to do with their content. All they have to do is ask their guild members if this amplifies light. Their guild members decide if it amplifies light, so to speak, whatever that
yeah,
means. And then all their fans fund it. And this allows the producers, which introduced the project to their fans and to Angel, to get it produced. And so this takes a few years. It's a few years process, but Angel has nowhere along that process does Angel kind of regulate or change or edit the content of these movies. So David is a good example of this. David is a traditional Christian animation for families. It's really well made, extremely well made. It's like the new Prince of Egypt. Uh, Obviously, not about the same subject, but it is about a similar period in history where Israel was in distress, and Prince of Egypt was about the story of Joseph and Moses, because there's two dual stories that they produced, Moses and Joseph. And now it's the story of David, right? The first real king of Israel. Saul was the first king of Israel, and then God was actually, but they rejected him as king, sadly. And this is what God says: they didn't reject you; they rejected me as king. And then Saul becomes king. He has a great stature among men. He's very handsome. People like him. Kind of makes you think of a lot of worldly leaders today, right? They're attractive, they're charismatic, they're well liked among men. But then guess what? They're not liked by God. And the reason is because they're all into themselves and they have worldly values. They don't value God as their leader. And so Saul was like that. Saul didn't value God as his leader. He thought it was about him being king. And so what does God do? He usurps Saul's authority. Is it ever a usurpation when God usurps our authority? We have no authority without God. So it's really us who tries to usurp God's authority. So God usurps Saul's authority by anointing someone else as king, even as a child. He anoints David as a king. And this really shows the providence of God, right? Because how can David defend himself against the anger and bitterness of Saul, a mighty king? But God preserves his way, right? So God protects him and preserves him. Why would he anoint him and then not preserve him and not allow him to be king, allow him to reach maturity in his kingship and just let him get killed off? That would be absurd. What kind of providence is that? What kind of God is that? Or what kind of father is that, right? To anoint your child and then let your child be killed by some kind of rival. So God preserves David and protects him because why? David is a man after God's own heart, and he's anointed to be the next king. There's really great themes in this movie. What do you think, honey?
I loved it. I thought it really captured the heart of the story. It said it was
Yeah.
based on Samuel chapter 1 and 2, and I feel like it really captured the heart of David. I feel like there's been so many people have been fascinated by this character of King David, and they've made movies and shows and miniseries about him because they see all this drama and excitement around his life. But, the best way to learn about your main character is to read what your character actually wrote. This movie feels
Absolutely.
like they actually read the Psalms and they actually were familiar with some of the things that David might have been feeling and the things that he might have been going through. And it was just really, really well written. And it captured the heart of David being a man
Right.
after God's own heart, specifically wanting God's good and wanting what God wants more than something he wants for himself, which
Yes.
he really just kind of wants to remain a shepherd in this movie, but he's thrust into this new life in the palace. And then, of course, he has that amazing scene with Goliath, which was incredibly done. Like, there's no way you could film that scene and say this was about might. Like, in no way was this about David being stronger or even more clever
Right.
than Goliath
Right.
or even being a good shot. This wasn't even about how David was a really good shot.
No, not at all.
It was it was so clearly like the battle belonged to the Lord, and they really could tell, the writers could tell, the animators could tell that's what the scene was about. And that's really what was happening here. It wasn't this like little guy versus the big guy and the little guy wins because he's got heart. It wasn't like that. It
Yeah.
was literally, it's going to make no sense that
Right.
David overcomes Goliath with a little tiny stone. So
Yeah.
that was great. Like you can tell they really love the story of David. You can tell they love the Psalms and they
Yes.
just get it. They get it. They get who he was, especially those first two chapters. I know David went through a lot of things in his lifetime, but in those first two chapters around the Goliath incident, and you could also say the Saul incident, they just really, and a lot of things they did made sense. Like Saul, if you know the story, you know that there's a moment where Saul actually hurls a spear at David while he's playing music.
Singing. Yeah.
And that's just kind of mentioned in the Bible. It's something that happens, but they build up to it in the movie and they show you all this frustration and inner conflict that Saul is having. And then um, all of a sudden the pieces come together and Saul looks at David and he realizes David is the anointed one, not
Right.
himself any longer. And he's just filled with anger and he throws the spear and so it really worked. They did a
Yeah.
great
It
job.
makes sense. It makes sense as the breaking point between Saul and David.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot to say about David, but I think that all the points you mentioned are really astute to differentiating Angel's David from the House of David,
Hmm.
which the House of David appears to be about an ambitious young man who wants to make his mark in the world, and the biblical account more displayed in Angel's film, which is about the heart of a child who has the heart of God and just wants to serve God, and he's not skilled necessarily. And God has filled him and imbued him with skills and talents that he simply uses in faith. It's not about his desire, right, to be a great king or to make a mark in the world. In fact, he kind of steps away from the ambitious idea of him being king in the angel David. But as a child, he's more interested in being a shepherd and caring for his sheep. And that's kind of the story arc in this film is him applying the idea of being a good shepherd to actually being a king. And to where he realizes by the end of the movie that I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say this, but by the end of the movie, he realizes that being a king is being a shepherd. And he can apply all the things he's learned as a shepherd from the beginning of the movie to his new job as a king. And God, of course, knew all this
Yeah.
and planned all this out, but David had no idea how this would work. But it works quite well, not just in the story, which you'll find in Samuel in the books of Samuel, but in this film. And I didn't find that same lesson in the House of David at all. So it does seem like a Christian Game of Thrones in many ways, which is an ambitious project. Moving past David for now, and we can possibly make a review of David, a more official review of David in the future. We can also talk about the Pendragon Cycle by the Daily Wire, which came out at a similar time to David, except if you're a regular subscriber, you can't get it until January. But we watched the first episode. And what did you think of it, Rebecca?
It was definitely better than I thought it would be. Like, it was really well written. I thought
Yeah.
I feel a little hesitant about liking it because I read something by Lawhead before that I didn't really like, and I'm not totally sure that I like. They're gonna be boring, because of
Yeah.
like just other little things. So I'm
Other
a little hesitant
controversies?
on it, but I actually
Yeah.
really thought it was well done, really well written,
Right.
and
Yeah.
really well directed. There were some, I don't know, I thought it was really good. Like, it's a fantasy story about Merlin, and there's characters kind of from different worlds meeting, and I guess they're going to, it was the first episode was basically a romance, I'm guessing, with some
Yeah.
backstory, and the backstory was very interesting.
A lot of
You've probably
cultural
seen it.
backstory. Yeah.
What's that?
A lot of cultural backstory, right? Like, where
Yes.
do these people come from? What's their thinking? What kind of culture do they come from? So I think that's pretty important to give a backdrop for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the background of the female character is that she's a bull leaper, which is something I learned about in art history that just blew my
Right.
mind. It's from the Macedonian people in history, as they would leap over these bulls.
You mean
As
Minoans? Minoans.
yeah, I do. Much better.
Minoans came much earlier,
Minoans.
even before the idea of the Greeks and all this stuff, and then the Romans. Yeah, the Minoans, such an ancient civilization. We know very little about them, actually.
But we do know that they like to leap over bulls, which is absolutely crazy.
It is.
So it was really cool to see that portrayed with a lot of skill, really well shot, really well. I don't know, the stunt flippers were awesome, and the bulls did amazing jobs, uh, and it was intense.
It
And then
was.
you're introduced to the. It's not Merlin, is it, or was it Merlin's?
Taliesin, right? His father, right? The father of Merlin.
So then we're introduced to Merlin's dad, and so he's from this more druid background, which is very interesting. So essentially, the two main characters are brought together under all these because they have a spiritual connection. They both have really wrestled with spiritual things. They've seen some dark stuff, and they're walking away from the darkness, and they're believing that there could be some goodness, some light in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of neat. And there were some hints to Christianity, some little nods to Christianity here and there.
I'd say quite a few hints to Christianity,
Hmm.
especially where Carice is talking to or Caris, as they pronounce her name, Caris, as she discusses with the monks, the Christian monks, who this God is. And why is
Hmm.
she curious about this God? Because she comes from a pagan culture and she's rejected
Uh-huh.
her pagan gods. And that's a really important part
Hmm.
in this first section of
Yeah.
the Pendragon cycle is her disillusionment with paganism. And I think that the Pendragon cycle is ultimately about the disillusionment with worldly religions like paganism, as opposed to this new religion of Christianity. So I like how they portray this in the ancient world and in the world of
Yeah.
these books. But yeah, I found that really compelling.
Yep. Me too.
There are some shocking scenes in the beginning of what these bull dancers have to go through in their
Hmm.
worship of Bel, this pagan god. And there's some really great moments in the beginning where you're like experiencing what paganism is really like for these characters,
Hmm.
and especially Karis. Later on in the story, which it appears that they go forward and backward in time in the first episode, and they show her before she's in Britain, and they show her after they've arrived to Britain. They don't show the trip from Atlantis to Britain, which I think is a little disappointing. Hopefully, they'll show that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But they go from Atlantis to Britannia, so to speak, and they make a little colony in Britain, which Britain doesn't really have a nation at this time, so there's nothing keeping them from doing that. In fact, they're constantly under attack from the Picts and other barbarians. And so Britannia hasn't really formed a national identity. And that's actually what this story is about is England forming its national identity under King Arthur, right? The legendary King Arthur. Where does he come from? This is a historically revisionist to some degree story, but it's supposed to be at least historically consistent with what you find in the record. So it's not unbelievable that this scenario could occur. Even the idea of Atlantis is not unbelievable, especially in the ancient world where Greek colonies were going around establishing city states and doing this on islands all across the globe. I shouldn't say the globe, but in their society, it would be considered the globe, right? Just like how Rome was considered a world power, conquering the world. And if you look at the population centers of the world, this kind of was true. So I think they at one point controlled 75 or 80% of the world's population in Rome. That's pretty much world conquest, if you think about it. So the Greek city states established kind of a base for what Rome would become. And then Rome takes over. It's not altogether then unbelievable that one of those colonies would be Atlantis and that Rome had never reached it. And so the way I look at Atlantis in this story is a literary device that encapsulates the Greek and pagan culture of Rome. And so this is why they are wearing these togas and they look very southern or very in a warm climate. And then when you return to Britannia, it's very cold. It doesn't necessarily look Roman, even though Roman soldiers are there, but it doesn't appear to have the culture of pagan Rome. And so I think that the device is to create a separation between what existed in Britain culturally and what existed in pagan Rome culturally. And Atlantis kind of encapsulates that pagan world quite well. And like I said, it's not altogether unbelievable that that actually could happen. So this world that they're painting is a mythical world, but it's also potentially fact based. We don't have enough information archaeologically about Atlantis, being that it was supposedly um, sunk under the ocean, which could have easily happened with an island that's a volcanic island. So that does happen to volcanic islands. Pompeii was an example of this, an island that was buried in ash. Other islands have sunk entirely after a volcanic eruption. So this is not unbelievable. But the idea that I think that Stephen Lawhead is making here is that there's the old pagan world that is sinking, and there's the new world of Christianity that is rising. And Arthur is meant to create a new kingdom, a kingdom of summer, which is under the God of light, which is the Christian God. And so we're setting the stage for that to happen. And there's some very disturbing scenes in the beginning of this. First of all, depicting paganism. Second of all, depicting how these pagan people are going to enter into this new world of King Arthur and of the God of Light. And I think it's quite compelling so far. I do have a few issues with it personally, as you know. When we saw it, I
Mm-hmm.
was pretty disappointed in the beginning at the narration. I think that I prefer when a story like this just rushes you into the plot and you go from place to place. I think you become more attached to characters this way as you're rushed from event to event. And I find that that kind of thrusts me into the story better than a narration. I don't really care who the narrator is. I don't know who they are or what they're about. Supposedly it's Merlin in the beginning, but I've never met Merlin. I don't know who he is or how, like what I think of him. So, all right, guys, we had a technical difficulty. We've been on Riverside and we've also been on the mountain here using cellular data. So it got dropped. And here we are going to continue our conversation with our other camera. Here we are, me and Rebecca. Hi, how you doing? This is probably a better situation anyway. But yeah, so how you doing?
Good, we're in the same shot.
Amazing how that works. Maybe this is what we should be doing all along. I don't know. But here we are, we're talking about the Pendragon cycle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Rebecca's our sound girl now, and I'm the camera guy. This is a good situation. But I remember I talked about. I'm sorry. I just have to mention. I know this is off topic, but I just have to mention that we've tried doing this like 3 or 4 times in different ways, and so I have to just say there's a reason we haven't put out our podcast at all this time in the last 2 months. We've had enormous technical difficulties.
Enormous.
Not to mention our children right now are antsy, just in the cabin right now, just waiting to burst out. So at any moment you could hear babies going, wah! No, they're fine. But yeah, so I think this morning we went into the library to do podcast equipment.
With high hopes.
Everything seemed to be working fine until it wasn't working fine. This is all after, of course, our call got dropped last time. And now we just tried to do it again with our phones here on the mountain. Also didn't work. So here we are. I've got my little Osmo camera instead. Hopefully this will work better. So, back to our discussion on Pendragon, right? I wanted to say that I had been slightly disappointed in the narration in the beginning. Yeah. And
exposition, too much exposition.
Well, I don't mind exposition if it's done well, right? Often people say narration is under no circumstances should you use narration, and it's always bad exposition and all this stuff. But there's so many devices you can use, like in books, right? You can use the literary device of an unreliable narrator, for example. There's a lot of ways you can kind of make narration work for you, right? And make your story interesting. But we're going down the mountain quicker now, aren't we?
I was thinking we could walk a little slow.
We could walk a little slow. I'm like
the mountain just
bounding down the mountain while I'm talking.
It thrusts you down.
It does, yeah. We're Florida people. We're not used to the extra whoo, let's go down the mountain.
The incline, the gravity.
Yeah. So we could just kind of meander and enjoy. And by the way, this is just such great, just so great, I mean, look at this.
The view is great.
The view is incredible.
We got fields of gold here.
It's. I know we keep trying to talk about this and can't do it, so let's get back to it. Back to it, Rebecca. Back to work.
Mm-hmm.
No, but there's a lot of things you can do with narration that's good. I just felt like the narration here was unnecessary. We all know what Arthur's about. By this time, and I felt like some of it was just a reveal of the great visuals that they've gathered, revealing these characters and visuals that they don't need to reveal. And I prefer a story I prefer when they thrust you into a story.
Yeah.
Instead of you having to kind of go through somebody's explanation first.
Yeah.
A film is a visual medium. Use your visuals. Bring people right into the story through character. And I think that it's more compelling.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I felt a little throughout the whole show a little bit like, what's going on? What character is this? So I appreciated all the information given. Right. But I like that. I like how they're not spelling it out for you as much as they could be.
Yeah, probably because I've read the first book. I didn't need any explanation.
Yeah.
But I also tried to pretend if I didn't know, would I rather just be thrust? And for me, I'd just rather be thrust into it and then have to like follow these characters around.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly as the books depict either. So they did kind of try to thrust you into the action. Because in the books, it started with Karis in Atlantis. And this other stuff from Britannia comes later, kind of more chronological. This kind of puts you back and forth in between these moments. And I sometimes I like that, because you get flashbacks and flash forwards, and that can be exciting at times. And plus, trying to figure it out also can be exciting.
We're also introduced to Taliesin's, I guess, his stepfather.
Yeah.
Which would be the Druids, and they basically discover this baby floating down the river, Moses-like, and so that really thrusts you into the story, into these two very different cultures, very historical, ancient cultures.
Yeah. Let's just sit over here.
Okay.
This should be fun. This really is a beautiful spot, you guys. So let's just sit here. All right. So I did really like Pendragon Cycle quite a bit. But I didn't like that it didn't show the transition between Atlantis and Britannia. I think that would explain more for the viewer, because if you've never read the books, you kind of don't understand how they got from Atlantis to Britannia. You could kind of guess, but they don't really explain that very well in the show. They did take a boat. It was very difficult and doubtful if they would survive. So, this is not explained in the show, but like I said, they go back and forward in between the present and the past.
It did throw me off a little bit visually to see these Grecian-looking, I don't know, Minoan, Atlantean type people interacting with druids. It kind of
Roman
blew my brain
togas.
A little bit. Yeah, the togas, which didn't even they're so low cut. It was so
right.
It felt very awkward to me, kind of cringy, but that was really the only thing about it that felt odd to me. Everything else worked really well. I thought the writing was good. I thought the actors really seemed to have an idea of who their characters were.
Yeah, and I really feel that what they're trying to do is make a distinction between the culture, between Britain and Atlantis. And to me, Atlantis represents the Roman or Greco-Roman culture. It didn't necessarily have to represent Atlantis per se. But I think they wanted to depict the two differently, and even the three different parts differently, which is to say the British, right, and then the Romans on Britain, who are the soldiers, and then the Roman culture, the Greco-Roman culture, which is very pagan. And so that is, I think, represented by Atlantis. It's represented by these low-cut togas, and the fact that it is a little revealing, right? To me, I think
Jeremy Boring is trying to say that this is a less moral culture. And warmer, it's a warmer climate. It's a different kind of culture. And they have these pagan rituals. But I think that he wanted to also depict the Romans on the field, right, in Britannia as possibly honorable, right? So Romans everywhere were not the same necessarily. Maybe that's the statement there. But I guess there is a fourth group, right, which are the barbarians or Picts who attack and force the people of Britain to find unity. And this is happening not just in history, right, but also in the Arthurian legend and also in the Pendragon cycle.
Were those the guys painted in blue?
Yeah, yeah. Freedom! No. Yes, they are coming from the Scottish area, but they're not Scots. They're Picts.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pagan thing, and that to me is worth talking about. When we meet Karis, she's basically praying to the god Bel, who is a bull god, and she's a bull dancer or
Right.
a bull leaper, which is this crazy thing that I guess the ancient Minoans used to do. Probably other cultures did too. I don't know. Where they would literally leap and flip over charging bulls. It's insane. But it was so well portrayed in the show. It was very exciting. Very just like you're on the edge of your seat watching these actors and stunt people flipping over the bulls. It looked
stunts.
It looked
by
amazing.
These incredible Spanish. I don't know if they'd call them bull leapers now, but or working with bullfighters possibly from Spain. But this is an old, tradition. In before even the Greeks, right, was the Minoans. But we know so very little about the Minoans. But that is one of the things that, obviously you see the pottery with the depictions of it. The theory would be that some of this stuff would be carried through on Atlantis. But because Atlantis was destroyed, they don't have any written records of it.
Yeah. So you have Karis coming from this pagan world, but then you also have Taliesin, and these are the two leads at the moment, the two, I guess, romantically involved people. And they're both from differing pagan cultures, and they both expressed disappointment in their pagan gods.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of where you were going with this. It's like we're setting up for a more unifying faith on the island.
Right, which is really Christianity.
Going to be Christianity, which at the moment they seem to just be calling, we've only seen episode 1, but they seem to just be calling it the God of Light.
Yeah, especially for Taliesin, he's the God of Light. For Karis, it could be, I think they do say he's the God of Light, but also she's introduced to the concept of Mary, because the monks who come kind of mistake her as Mary and then foolishly bow, and then they feel kind of foolish about it. And she's like, who is this God? And so they kind of introduce her to the concept of Christianity and of this God as being a different kind of God than the pagan gods. He's a God of love and truth.
Yeah, truth.
Yeah, and so she's kind of confused by this because her history being a pagan kind of princess in a way, this doesn't really compute with her. And then I think because of Taliesin is introduced to her as a kind of, sort of a prophet singer. They're called bards, right, at this time and place. And that is someone who's a musician and singer, but they are talented in ways unspeakable, right? And in this case, right, he can kind of read her mind while singing. And so he sings this beautiful song. It's really quite good, actually. It's Lord of the Rings-ish. And I found it quite compelling. But also it's revealed she leaves the performance in kind of a huff, And you're like, why is she so upset about this? Well, he goes to talk to her and sees her in a lake, bathing in a lake, calls her Lady of the Lake.
Yeah.
And she reveals that he was reading her mind, right? And is offended by this. And of course, she would be offended by this. But for him, this is just part of his ability. And also I think he is attracted to her, but also there's a commonality between them, which is that they both have rejected paganism. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot in common, and which obviously is what brings them together. And so it becomes a love story pretty quickly on between Taliesin and Caris, and their common rejection of paganism. And so this God of light, truth, and love is introduced to them. And this is one thing that I made this point this morning in our failing recording, but the historical accuracy of this is compelling, as well as the spiritual conversation it brings you into.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one aspect of this show that people are not bringing up. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't have the interest, mm-hmm. but this is down our alley. Like, this is what we really care about. So in a historical sense, the question is, could this happen the way it's depicted? And I would say yes, it could happen the way depicted, even with the spirituality aspect of it. And number two, is the spirituality accurate? I would say yes. The way they depict paganism is accurate. The way they depict Christianity at this time is accurate. It's like a Dark Ages Christianity, right? So I'm very pleased with that aspect of the show.
Yeah. And I really like the way you said the spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
Because, as you said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
in the video that didn't work, that is a conversation that we're not seeing in media today. We're not seeing it in shows or movies.
Disappointingly.
And it's one worth having.
Absolutely. It's the reason to have a show like this. It's the whole reason to have a show. It's not to see great visuals and to see someone's new idea about Arthur. No, it's to see the foundational kind of cornerstones of our society being laid, and how does that work, and why is it important? Why is Arthur important at all? So I think that's the really compelling part of this that we can get into, is like, why is Arthur important? What are they really trying to say through the story? You could read La Mort d'Arthur, however you want to pronounce it. It's French, I guess. The Death of Arthur. You could read that. That's a good depiction of it. You could watch Excalibur, which is based on La Mort. You could read the other tellings of King Arthur and all of that. But it's like a conglomeration of all these things, really. But I think primarily it's the point of Arthur, which is how England came to be, how Great Britain came to be. Why is it great? And the spiritual and religious aspect that unifies their culture. So when people do Arthur badly, it's because they missed those aspects and they fail to discuss those aspects. So I'm really pleased that so far, and the truth is we've only watched the first episode.
Yeah.
We could see the other two episodes momentarily, but right now, I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing, especially just in what is being attempted here. It's quite good. Like I said, I didn't prefer the narration. I want them to show more of the journey. But what I'm seeing now is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and we didn't mention it before, but there's the character, is it Mordred?
More green.
Anyways, she turns out to be a real big baddie, and
yeah, she's the big baddie.
And so they did some really interesting things with her character.
Yes, a form of jealousy is happening between her and Karis, her
stirring up a
sister.
lot of jealousy and a lot of power-hungry
Mm-hmm.
witchery, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to say that.
I think she wants to restore the old paganism to her culture. She probably sees that Karis's rejection of paganism is actually what's caused the problem in her culture. And so I think she wants to stay faithful to the power-hungry aspects of paganism, and so she is power-hungry. She has this palantir sort of thing that she uses to see, and the priests of their old priests of their religion are mostly kind of dunces and very egotistical and unhelpful, and so which is partly what gave Carice, by the way, her kind of rejection, or gave her disillusionment
in the books.
with paganism in the books.
Yeah.
And so she still hangs out with these guys. One of them in particular, she tries to basically steal power from, and some of that's depicted in the show. So you'll see that in episode 1. But yeah, she's a vicious rival of Karis, and has a sort of a jealousy with Taliesin. So when you have a rival, it's almost ensured that anybody you're having fun with, they're going to be jealous of that person as well. So it's a sort of a Girardian conflict, a mimetic rivalry, so to speak, happening. Did we want to move on to section 4?
Yeah.
We have a poll we'd like to do, and this is to help us and to help you. We have some poll questions because we'd like to know if how you'd like to support us in the future. And so, Rebecca, can you introduce the poll questions?
Yeah. So we'd like to know if you'd rather support with your hard-earned money, number 1, a subscription to find out more about conservative Christian entertainment at MediaMoses.com.
Right.
This including very relevant stories and articles about what's happening in today's conservative Christian media. Or, number 2, purchase an already established great work of Western civilization in the form of a book at our storefront, Vine and Branches.
VineandBranches.com.
Yes.
Or no, Vine and Branches Bookshop.
Yeah.
VineandBranchesBookshop.com.
Or 3, support an original film or documentary about a subject you care about. Any subject you care about.
Yeah, any subject.
This is a film we produce ourselves, and with your support, and just so you know, we have many in the development stage already.
Yes. So, in other words, it's not going to be difficult for us to just start one of these film projects because we've already done a lot of this work. We already know a lot of the issues that are pretty relevant in society right now. And so we've got 3 or 4 in the works, some of them narratives, some of them documentaries, which, by the way, I'm working on one about the abolition of man by C.S. Lewis. So I think that's going to be pretty fun. And, 2 others come to mind, which I don't need to mention. I've actually mentioned some of these previously in my previous podcast episodes. Let us know. We really, really would like to talk with you guys. And you can do it through this poll very easily, or leave a comment with more detail if you'd like to give more detail. But it's these burning 3 questions that we have, because each of these projects is very time intensive. They're very difficult. They're each full-time jobs on their own. And so us gestating on all these different projects, it can really make you think, well, is this time well spent? Right? I could be putting all this energy into things that nobody really cares about. And it's not that would be worthless or not worth my time. It's that I would rather be communicating to people in a way that they need to be communicated to. So if one of those three things communicate most to you, please let us know in the comments or in the poll, and we would be happy to have a dialogue with you, work with you to get one of these projects done. And the three projects are more Medium Moses articles on the Christian conservative entertainment news. 2, would you prefer to support by buying Western civilizational works in book form? Or 3, would you prefer that we worked on an original film about some subject that you care about? All right? So that's our episode for today. I really hope you guys are doing great wherever you're at. And we intend to get a studio again very soon. It probably won't be in the next 2 months, but we'll see. And we're enjoying our time as it is. And this has been great so far. But we do need some studio space or something. All right, guys, love you. And give a salute to the culture warrior making life worth living for you. And have a great weekend. Bye-bye.